Wednesday morning, and I wanted to just hit on a few items. I wish you guys could see the setup for me to get my phone balanced. It's absolutely ridiculous. Whoa, let me grab my stuff. I'm gonna talk. So, doing a lot of thinking this morning. In my 10-minute drive home from my kids' school, I swear to goodness, I thought about 4 million things I needed to get done. So, how many things in this this is a super old edition. How about this one? A little newer embalming book. How many things, if you opened your embalming book, are you like, what in the heck is that? You know, my 2-minute videos, I try and hit on some things for you guys, some things for the common everyday person. So many different items from the prep room that I'm sure you guys have no fracking clue what they are. Whether it is a Blickens device or a gravity bottle or whatever it may be, so many bits of information that you don't know. So I thought about today, I don't want to open it and have everything fall out of it. I've got my embalming kit today. So this is actually never used, just to let you know how often I use my own embalming kit. Somebody had given this to me as a gift. It's like a traveling embalming kit. So maybe if you're a trade embalmer and you go places and they don't have instruments. I always had this in my car. You know, when I'm going trade embalming, I have it just in case, but I kind of make do with whatever is there. But I want to just go through what is in my embalming kit for you, to show you just some of the things. I happen to have, I had taken this when I did a career day and I had this setting out. So I have a trocar button in there. I've got some eye caps in there, but those don't come in your embalming kit. So these instruments are all clean, never used. So there's a scalpel. And I'm not going to use some of them, the exact devices. So this would be used. I never use this during embalming, but I know some people do. You would use this when you lift up the artery, to stick this under the artery to hold it up. Hey, Summer. Hey, Michael. You would use this under the artery to hold it up. Once you've found the artery or the vein, it's kind of a, holding device. Come on, guys, students, what's the technical term for this? If you guys know, if you've already taken it on the test. What is it? So then we have aneurysm hooks. There's different styles, and yes, they have some technical names. I'm not going to dive in those too much. So you have this style. This end's a little sharper for when you're dissecting through. Same as this. These are very, very sharp if you're going through muscle, going through tissue, that you can divide and separate out the artery, especially the artery. And so some people like this. There's little grooves in it that you can see. So if you use this under, the artery raising tool. Seriously, when do I ever need to know a technical term after you've passed your boards? Come on, guys, let's be real here. And so you can use, and so the artery or the vein would seat in those little grooves. That's why I'll use these rather than this. This to me is just an extraneous item on the table, but some people love them. You'll get to find your own rhythm. I typically won't use this style unless that's all that's available. Typically I would use this style. This is my favorite type of aneurysm hook. It has the grooves in it, so you can seat it under the artery when you find it. It's also a little pointier. Some of these you'll find are rounded at the ends, so they're not sharp enough to really get through the tissue when you're dividing it this way through the tissue. So I like this one a little bit better. So it's got the handle I like, the grooves I like, the pointy on the end that I like. So these are my favorite style when I'm embalming. There's 2 pair of forceps, so just pinchies. I'll use this at the beginning of embalming. I will grab cotton, spray it with disc spray, swab out the nose, swab out the mouth, clean the eyes, not in that order. Usually I go eyes, nose, mouth, and that's what I'll use these for. Also, positioning of the mouth, I'll use when I'm putting like suturing, I'll suture because I don't use a needle injector, not my style. I'll use this to open mouth, pull open the mouth and grab the suture to tuck it in, or if I'm doing cotton or anything to, you know, fill out the face, I'll use this to pull up the mouth and stick in and get it all situated. So I use these two the most probably for the embalming. So if I'm embalming, I'll pull out scissors, scalpel, 2 of these, 1 of these, and that might be about it. I think that's about it. And scissors, and then suture needles. So I'll get to those in a minute. But this I'll also use, you know, in the artery, or not the artery, in the vein when I'm free draining, because I just free drain. I may stick this in to pull out clots. There's also an angled version where it's got another piece that comes down that you stick down in the artery. A couple different versions. Let me get these all tucked back in before I go to the next side. So that's one piece of this. Then the next piece is, I'll show you. So you've got, you're gonna have, seriously, they don't stay in very well. Why did I just go blank? All I can think is aneurysm hooks, guys. You can fire me as an educator right now. So this will be what goes in the artery, hook up to the machine. You'll find, seriously, what's the name of this, guys? I just went blank. I feel absolutely moronic right now. Come on, Michael, what's the name? Somebody hit me up. Maybe I'm playing. Cannula, thank you. Oh my goodness. I knew you'd come through for me. So these cannulas come in, thank you, Martina. Woo, happy Wednesday. Come in different lengths. So I prefer the longer length. It's about this much longer for when I'm injecting down. And then I'll go to the shorter version when I'm injecting up, because down you can then get closer to the heart, closer to your main central, you know, engine of the body per se when you're injecting. Up, you don't want anything too long because you could risk breaking the artery because it's only so long between here, and it also starts bifurcating and doing all sorts of crazy things. So the shorter one going up is better. So the bottom of this one just plugs right into the tube. I don't love this style. There's a few other styles. There's one that has a stopper. So it's a block, it's a small little square, and it has a turn knob on it. So that way, if you do suture around the artery, I will tie it then up around the stopcock just to hold it in. These things will shoot out of the artery if you build up enough pressure. The whole thing with the tube will shoot back out, and then you have like the fire hose effect where you're shooting fluid all over the room. Done that many a times because they're not seated. Even with clamps on this in the artery, you can build up enough pressure that these shoot out. So if you put suture around the artery and around the stopcock, it holds it in place. It doesn't shoot out, like ever. I've never had it happen, at least. Always good to do. So that is one other style, the stopcock. So then you can also, if you want to, like instead of turning the machine off when you take it out and switch to a different artery, if you have different arteries raised, with a stopcock, you can just turn the flow off with the machine still on, put it in a different artery and reconnect, and then turn the stopcock and it starts flowing again. There's also another version for specific machines that this is a little white piece on the end, and you click it in to the tube that is connected to the machine. And so there's different styles, but cannulas, and they come in different sizes. So much smaller width. You're gonna find this is, so this, which of course to you, you can't really see, I guess, in aspect what size this is, but this is the most common size that I will use. Some of these also have a little divot around here. Some people think it's great. I think it sucks because that's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm very opinionated. If I tie off with my suture and then pull this out, I can rip the artery because it'll get stuck on that divot. So for the style that I do where I use the suture to hold it in place, that divot acts actually against me. So I don't like the divot. Some people love the divot because it's instead of this being a smooth go in and out, that little divot can hold it in place a little extra. So it depends on the embalmer. That's the thing, is there's so many variables. You have to find your style, what works best for you, your own little way that you maneuver through your embalming. But that's why you can learn from everybody, good and bad. So the more people you embalm around, whether they are seasoned 40-year embalmers or whether they are just learning, you're gonna learn so many little tricks and tips. And you can learn good ones, bad ones, things that work for you, things that don't work for you. Learn from everybody because there's so many nuances. Just with this thing, I've told you like 20 different things that could be on this, and everybody likes it or dislikes it for a different reason. So we have different sizes. There's infant cannulas for babies. I don't know how the heck these things sit in here. Then we have drain tubes. You're going to find a lot of funeral directors or embalmers that never use these. So this would hook to the drain tube, and this will go in the artery. And so this is, you would put the tube here and it would run all the way down to the drain. So that blood is never free flowing on the table. One great thing about this is you can build up pressure. So you can keep this closed and then open it when you want to drain out, and then you can close it. Restricted circulation is what you would call it, and you can open it again. So a lot of people like this because you can build up pressure and then let it go. If you have a lot of clots, that's great because you want to build up pressure to get those clots through the system and then get them out. I don't always love using this. I'm a free drain person. That's kind of how I preference, but a lot of people do like this for that reason, is you can build up pressure. You can also get some suction going, kind of like a plunger in a clogged toilet. You're not trying to per se push things through, you're trying to pull it back and then it goes down. So with this, you can pull and you're kind of sucking it back sucking it back out, so then it will go down the drain. You're pulling it to shove it, to pull it to shove it. You're trying to get things within the system kind of moving by doing that. Does that make sense? And it comes in different sizes as well. These little things don't flip correctly. So I talked about clamps. So I always use one of these if I have one, around the cannula. You have to make sure you don't put too much pressure and actually pinch the cannula, because that can happen. So that's why the larger hole on this larger one fits perfectly around that average size cannula that I like to use. But there's also a small for when you have like the radial, if you use one in the radial artery, it's like the perfect size to hold around the radial cannula. So this one works really well. But if you get it cinched too tight, sometimes it's really hard to get off. So those are those. Then you also have regular little clamps, forceps type or clamp things. These I might use around an infant cannula really gently to hold if it's really small. Thanks, Nicholas. Yeah, all of a sudden this popped in my head. I have this. Why am I not showing you guys this crap? Not crap. Man, I'm on a naughty word list today or something. The place I use these the most is in an autopsy situation in the head. So there's something called the circle of Willis in the head. That is when you guys may not have even encountered this yet. So when you're standing at the top of the table, you pull the scalp up over the face and you're looking at the exposed part of the head inside the cranium. you see these little divots, and you see this central little part called the circle of Willis. That is where the artery comes up one side, it kind of swirls around, and it goes down then the other side of the person's head and neck. That will get broken during an autopsy pretty much almost every time in some fashion. If it's not, then call and applaud your pathologist or diener for not breaking that circle of Willis. But so what'll happen is, and it's kind of if you're by yourself, it's a back and forth sort of situation. So you have the scalp down, you turn on your machine, you peek up and under, because fluid might be shooting out at you through the holes in the circle of Willis. So then you have to kind of get up under there and clamp where the fluid's coming out, and then turn the machine back off, turn it back on, make sure it's not shooting. If there's another shooting place or it's dripping out another, pinch that off. And that is the reason that you need to inject both sides of a head on a person who's been autopsied, because that central, it's kind of like removing the heart from the body. The fluid can only go so far and it can't continue down the next side. And so these, sometimes I've had like 6 of them up under there to stop the leaking, to make sure that fluid is retaining in the head on that one side during the injection on an autopsy body. So that's where I use these the most, is in that situation. Then you got scissors. Sharp scissors are the key to cutting, opening up an artery, cutting all your suture cord, everything. Scissors are so critical, having a really good sharp pair of scissors. However, let's talk about when you're cutting open an artery. If it's anything smaller than your carotid, don't use these. You're very likely to cut through the artery and lose it. And they're like rubber bands, where if you cut it and break it, it may snap and be gone forever. So a great way to cut your artery is with your scalpel, but do not cut it. So let's say, oh shoot, I have nothing here. We're gonna use this because this is all I got. Say this is your artery. Do not cut this way on your artery, cut this way. Because if you cut your artery this way, you may break through both sides, but the sides, you may break through over here and over here, but your sides are still intact. So cut long way, especially on infants or your radial. This way, you're not gonna slice and break your artery. You're just gonna make one long little incision through it. Got it? This way. Very important. And then I've got your C-curve needle and your S-curve needle. They come in different sizes, different shapes. I use my C-curve when I am suturing the mouth, because trying to work an S-curve, so you would go in through here, right here, to pop out through the mouth. If you use an S-curve, you then have to turn and go. It's really hard to suture a mouth closed with an S-curve, in my opinion, because you would go through, but then you also have to flip it to bring the backside through. With this, you just go out. Does that make sense? So I will use this to suture the mouth. Yeah, I'm never getting these back in this holder. And I use this for suturing your neck and such. And the great thing for this is it's almost like a little handle that you can give more pressure. Don't be afraid of using a bigger S-curve. You don't get an award for using a small one. Use a bigger one because you have a better handle on it. This is where you're gonna find you're gonna poke yourself the most. You're gonna have an exposure. You're gonna get a pin poke is with a needle because you're suturing. You're going in this side and you're stabbing this other hand. Get a good firm, especially if you're doing an autopsy and you're suturing, or an autopsy and a tissue donor, and you have to suture the head, the full chest, the full both legs. Do you know how much suturing that is? Your hand's gonna hurt like crap afterwards, especially do 2 of those in a day. You're done. But if you get pressure on this backside, it helps so much. So this is one thing you're gonna really learn is the mechanics of suturing where you're hurting your hand the least. Where to put this hand, how to maneuver with this hand, so you're keeping this hand safe and you're using this hand most effectively with the best pressure. Literally, that's everything in my kit. Like I've said, I've never used it. I've never had to, because everywhere I've embalmed, I've just kind of made do with what's there. Even if there's not a needle, that's, you know, the best one for me to use. But I would love to know, flip open your embalming books, find an item, tell me what it is so I can shoot you guys a video on how to use it or what it is or how to best help you learn it and what we use it for. Thanks so much, Jim, because this stuff is imperative. For boards and for exams and for your embalming class and your chemistry class, you need to know what these things do and how to best use them for yourself.